Shabbat Shalom, family. Shabbat Shalom. Peace and blessings to you. This is Elder Uriah coming to you live on this Friday evening, the Shabbat, for those of you who are observing your day of rest. Giving all praise to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to our ancestors, to Yeshua Mashiach, our teacher, our Savior, who showed us how to walk out the Torah circumspectly. Tonight, we have a presentation. Our good brother Woodson Payne is going to be joining us again in regards to further revelation into the faithist movement, dealing with the OAHSPE. But he's going to be touching on something very interesting that people need to be made aware of, and I think is very appropriate, apropos, that Brother Woodson shares this information, even with the people in our community, because it is something that has drawn our people away from, whether it be Christianity or whether it be Israelite. We've seen evidence of that. It has drawn them away and into what we consider to be an occult following. No matter how they slice it and paint it, no matter how they try to dress it up, you can put lipstick and a wig and high heels on a pig. It's still a pig, no matter how you dress it. And this is how we are looking at these occultic type of organizations and things, these secret societies. We're going to be bringing out more on that. The conversation with my brother, as well as with Woodson Payne, on how to best approach that. And Woodson Payne, who is a author, and I call him an occult historian. We're waiting for him to come in so that he can share his presentation on this evening. And we're going to get into it. Hopefully you'll learn something on this evening. Also, tomorrow afternoon, I think about 12:15 to 12:45 p.m. I have to check that out. In the afternoon, I'm going to be doing a Shabbat class. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about, and I've been advertising this for a while, haven't fully gotten around to do it and bringing this out, but I think it's very appropriate, once again, to bring this out on tomorrow afternoon. We're going to be talking about the prohibition of eating swine in Israel, or in the Torah, right? We're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be dealing with it in a way that many of you, I guarantee, have not heard before. It's going to be very interesting. We're going to be bringing out some things that we know you're not aware of when it comes to the understanding and keeping the law, statutes, commandments of the Most High, especially dealing with the topic and with the subject on eating of the swine, eating of the flesh of the swine. We're going to be talking about how it actually relates to us today, and not just in the sense of dietary laws. Not just in the sense of dietary laws, but we're going to be talking about its importance and what you actually need to understand. And what we're aiming to do here and looking to do is that we're here to bring you into a place where your understanding and then your consciousness and your mind is open and your heart is open to see the Torah in a practical way today in your everyday living. So, and what we're going to be doing is sharing some things, as I said before, that you have not heard before, and you're going to say, LDR, what is it about not eating of the swine? What is it about that prohibition uh, in the law, statutes, and commandments that were brought down by Moshe? What is it to that? Why are these dietary laws so important that you feel the need to talk about it? Well, tune in tomorrow afternoon, and we're going to be sharing some things that's going to be, I guarantee you're going to be surprised about what you hear. You're going to be very surprised about what you hear. And so, peace and blessings to you, sister, Professor Lovely Lady. Peace and blessings, family. We're just waiting for Woodson Payne to chime in. I told him 8 o'clock, so hopefully we're on the right schedule so he can do his presentation. If not, we'll do something a little bit different. So I am going to give him some time to show up. I know he was excited and enthused about making this presentation on this evening, and so I'm going to give him some space to do that. And he's dealing today with the Faithist movement, or the OAHSPE Bible, and talking about the inherent racism that exists against African Americans and Native Americans within the text itself. And so we're going to be talking about that and bringing that out as well on this evening. So we'll just wait for the good brother to come on in so that he can go in and share. We'll give him a few minutes to do that. If not, we will go into something briefly and talk about it. For many, you will see it's the month of February, quote unquote, Black History Month for many. I remember Black History Month in schools. And, they used to have the giant, pictures and cartoon pictures of all of the Black entrepreneurs and activists, those that have paved the way seemingly for our freedom here in America today. And I was thinking about that, me seeing quite a few, we had at least 50 to 60, Shirley Chisholm and, different things like that. We'll see, there was a Shirley Chisholm before there was a Kamala Harris, and, so Kamala Harris. And so we see a lot of these things, right? Even, of course, Dr. King, and of course, Jesse Jackson, who also ran for president before. So there are a number of people, that was available to us to understand what Black History Month was created for, and the different people, Malcolm X, of course, different things like that. Just talking about those, the obvious Rosa Parks, and different things of that nature. But I was taking a step back and just looking and thinking about that and wanting to ask, who would we put on the walls today in our schools? Hold on, family. All right, thank you. That's our good brother, Woodson Payne. He just began in about 5 minutes to start his presentation, so that's great. We're just going to let him rock out. But who would be on those walls today? Who would you want your kids to write about today? Who would they have to write about today? Right? Would it only be the Obamas? I'm talking about at least within the last, I say 40, 30 years or so. 30 years or so. Who would your children be writing reports about in school today? Outside of a sports figure, outside of a, uh, actor or anything of that nature, right? Who would that person be today? Who would your children write about? Peace and blessings to you, Sister Cassandra. Peace and blessings to you. Who would your children be able to write about today? Your nieces and nephews. What are their options regarding Black History Month? Would it be Beyonce, Jay-Z? Definitely can't be Diddy anymore. So who would they write about today regarding Black history? Right? Outside of the entertainment industry. I'm not saying that those in the entertainment industry have not accomplished things and has not served the community well. But outside of those things, right? Would it be Republican Tim Scott? Would it be Democrat Warnock? What is the young lady? I can always forget her name. She always is going in on Green. I think she's down at, I think the senator's down in Texas. I always forget her name, but she's always going in on the lady. She's always going in on Marjorie Taylor Greene. I can't think of her name, but who would we posit to be that person, or a person, or the people that we would find most significant to write about? Right? Your children will have to write about or to report on. Right? You had Maya Angelou, Langston Hughes, accomplished poets and authors. Who we would have today? What is the gentleman's name? What is the name? Tanisha Coates. As far as a Black literary author, I'm sure there are many more that I haven't named. But what would we do? Who could we present to our children today? Right? For Black History Month. Is Black History Month even important to our children today? And what could we say to them? Right? What could we say to them if they wanted to choose their favorite rapper? What would we say? Right? Would they be able to write about Lil Wayne or Kendrick Lamar and his Grammy accomplishments? Would they write about um, Beyonce in her accomplishments, musical accomplishments, and accomplishments they are. But what Black heroes would they write about today that would be contemporary with our children and our nieces and our nephews? What lifelong lessons, what uh, um, example of struggle and victory and overcoming obstacles, who would they have to look to glean from the heartache and the hardship that someone had to go through in order to pave the way? Or do we think, or do our children think, or do the young people think that we've achieved freedom to a degree where racism and white supremacy no longer matters? No longer they believe they're no longer affected by it? Why would they why would they look for someone who's going through uh a struggle like as far as activists? Cassandra says Beyonce is Luciferian. Even further to note, who and what would our children have to look to today? We must say, as much as racism and white supremacy still exist in this country, to our children and to our young people, it looks very different. It looks very different because, for the most part, racism and white supremacy in this country is not as um, overt as it once was. It's not so much as in your face. Well, some think that since we have President Trump in office, we're going to be seeing much more in your face situations of racism and white supremacy. But has the idea of that changed for our youth? Our youth are more afraid of the people that live in close proximity to them than they are someone who's espousing racism and white supremacy. They're more afraid about what the gang on the next block over, or 3 blocks over, or 4 blocks over, of persons and people that look like them. They're more afraid. They're afraid of those YNs, right? They're more afraid of those YNs than they are of any white man or white woman in power who can change the course of their economic life and potential freedom. We're seeing more and more blended couples. We're seeing more and more blending of music. Who do our children look to? Would you argue today that to them, especially those that live in LA and South Central and Inglewood and all those different areas that Kendrick Lamar may be the closest thing they ever get to a Dr. King. He's been lauded as someone who's been able to cross gang lines and cultures in those areas where they're known and sworn enemies among our own people, but rival gangs. He was able to bring them together and in a peaceful way through his music. How should we look at him? How should our children, how should the youth look at him? Should they place him in the same category as we would a Dr. King, as we would a Malcolm X? Racism and white supremacy against Black Americans, Native Americans, Hispanics, Mexican Americans is rampant and prevalent. It's rampant and prevalent. It has been since the inception of this country. But what do we do now that our youth are so far removed from the idea or the possibility? I don't even think they believe that it's a possibility, from the idea or possibility of being enslaved. What do you do with the mindset that's not conscious of that? Maybe as we were, 40 years ago. But now at least 3 to 4 generations passed with no idea really of Black Wall Street, Rosewood, right? No idea about the Stono Rebellion. No idea even further back about Nat Turner. No idea. So what do we give our children? What do we give the youth in the absence of these things? They're not faced with the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK. They're not faced with burning crosses, at least not literal ones. They're not faced with these things. They don't carry the fear. They're free to walk about the South. They don't think about going down south and the dangers of it. We hear little incidents here and there, and just as some of the police brutality and those types of things, George Floyd incident, we see those types of issues. But they only capture the attention of the minds of the youth for a little while. But what do we do when it's still ingrained racism and white supremacy, when it's still ingrained in our religions and in our words and in our rhetoric? There is residue of racism and white supremacy that still exists. Even in our public schools, even in our school system. These things still exist. But how do they filter through the minds of the young people? What are we leaving them? What legacy are we leaving them? What fight are we leaving them to carry on? Or have we given up the fight? Does racism and white supremacy no longer seem to be something that threatens us in our daily lives? We don't think about that when we're chasing a bag and vacationing in Turks and Caicos and Aruba and Tulum and Cancun and traveling the country. No longer worry about sundown towns. Go and come as you please. No longer have to worry about the things that Jack Johnson, the famous African American boxer, went through in courting a Caucasian woman, being beat and stripped of his championship title and life threatened. That we see so many mixed couples now on television, in the streets. It's normal now. It's not looked at as taboo anymore. You have many religions that speak against it. Some people just don't prefer it. But now that's the least of your worries. That's the least of the things that we hear about now. Whether or not someone is dating outside of their race. Now you got folks marrying their dogs and cats, marrying their horses. You even have folks marrying themselves. Brother Woodson Payne, I saw you in the back, but it says your device is having trouble connecting, so it wouldn't let me allow you to come on the panel. I see you back again. I'm getting the same message. It's not letting me allow you on the panel, but I do see that you're back here, though. It's waiting for a connection, I think. You have folks who are lovers of themselves. Paul even talks about that in some of his in some of his epistles. People will be lovers of themselves. But what do? Who would we present today? Somebody give me in the chat. Somebody give me a name. Male, female, Doesn't matter. I would make it difficult for you and say anyone that's not a sports figure, but that wouldn't be fair. Anyone that's not in the entertainment industry, I could say that, but that wouldn't be fair either. But who can we say today we're excited for our children to hear them speak? I remember there was a time that families, we would come together and we would listen and hear the speeches from our Black leaders. I grew up in Chicago. I often listened to a lot of the prominent pastors, a lot of the prominent Israelite leaders. Louis Farrakhan, Ben Amin, Jesse Jackson Jr., Rainbow Push, right? Dr. Uh, Barrows. She was an amazing speaker and educator. We would sit and listen. I even had in school, I even had profound African American teachers who were historians, real teachers, real teachers, right? Who didn't just teach us the preamble of the Constitution, but they taught us the Black Constitution. Y'all didn't think there was one, did y'all? We didn't just learn the national anthem at times, but we learned the Black national anthem, right? I grew up, I had quite a few Afrocentric teachers. And so that essence, that understanding of of James Brown when he says, "Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud," those things still resonated, still reached us as children. We didn't have just sports figures to look up to, politicians and activists. More importantly, we had parents with integrity, mothers and fathers, and not just in my house, but the entire block that I lived on. Mothers and fathers with integrity. You couldn't act the fool down the street in front of the Robinson's house and they don't come tell your parents, but you didn't know your parents were going to get told. They would walk you down to your parents' house. A village. A village. Sister Cassandra said, yes, from Harlan High School, south side of Chicago. Yeah, I went to Chicago Vocational. I had to go to, I went past Harlan High School every day. Even in my young years, hung out at the 95th Street Terminal daily. On my way to school. Absolutely. I lived in the Wild Hundreds, going all the way to 87th Street every day, and graduated on time too. Was catching the bus until I started driving. But again, we are at a place where identity is important, and not created identities, not made up identities. Some people argue, they say, well, Elder Yara, how are you talking about created identities? Aren't you claim to be an Israelite? Isn't that a created identity? My answer is no. Because my faith, if nothing else, defines who I am. It's a part of me. It's a part of you. The thing you trust in the most is the thing you identify with the most. I see you, Brother Woodson, Payne, but still no connection. It won't allow me to allow you on the panel. It says you need to connect your microphone, Brother Woodson, if you can hear me. It says you need to connect your microphone, and then I can add you to the stream. So check your microphone, Brother Woodson, if you're listening to me. It's your microphone. Yes, I tell people, Sister Professor Lovely Lady, I have a lot of respect for the Honorable Louis Farrakhan and what he's done in Chicago. Brother Payne, he's here. You might want to
finally.
Finally. You might want to. I don't know if you want to leave your camera on. There he is. Nice brim, man. Nice hat.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. So I'm glad you made it.
It kept telling me what to do, and I kept ignoring it. But evidently, there's a drop down on the left-hand side of the browser that lets you turn your camera. It used to be on the bottom, but you have to turn on your camera and your microphone up in the left-hand side. There's a little settings. I haven't used it in a long time anyway.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad you're here. Glad you made it. This is the show you wanted to present. I thought it was a great topic, especially for me, because this is some information that, I'm not 100% privy to, I'm sure, and you being the researcher that you are. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about just briefly what you're going to be presenting tonight, and then also a little bit about, if you like, your up and coming book that I know you've been writing. You've been very gracious enough to allow me to read a few excerpts, and I know you have some posted on medium.com, some excerpts of the book. I think it's a solid work, a fascinating work so far, and can't wait to see the end result of it. But yeah, if you could just tell us briefly about what you're going to be presenting tonight, and why you felt the need and the importance to present to give this particular presentation on this topic tonight.
Well, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You guys put a 1 in the chat if his volume is low.
I'll turn
If
it
you
up a
can
little
actually,
bit.
if you guys having difficulties hearing him or you can hear him okay.
How about now?
I can hear you. I just want to make sure that those in the chat can actually hear you
Yeah,
because
I'm
I know
trying to
sometimes.
testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, I can hear myself through the headphones.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I can hear you. I can hear you well.
all right, I'll just for new
They say
people that
perfect, so good. Thank you, Sister
okay.
Cassandra. They can hear you well.
So for new people that had didn't see the previous program, 2-hour program we had, it was basically an overview of what seems to be getting some traction, which is OAHSPE Bible in the, let's say, my term would be the Israelite community and maybe the Pentecostal community. Um, so I've been a researcher for 30 years, and I just want to preface that with full disclosure. I was in 2 OAHSPE Bible cults. Uh, Once in 1970 for 2 years, and then again in 89 to 95 for 6 years. So I was born in a OAHSPE Bible family. I grew up in it. I was a vegetarian, did the whole thing anyway. There, for one reason or another, it's just a really crazy atmosphere to try to live in, and I just walked away from it. So I'm not somebody that got thrown out of some OAHSPE group or had a big argument or blowout. I just walked away, and I never looked back. And around 1995, I started researching this cult and all these claims made in OAHSPE Bible. So that was in 1995. I joined up with another researcher, American, who lives in Japan. He's a retired professor. So he was already on a quest to figure this thing out. So we've been collaborating since 2016, and he has his own book about completely different things that I'm going to talk about tonight. This is just more about the grand story arc of all the fallacies that are in the OAHSPE Bible. And these are things that even people in the OAHSPE cult haven't put together. They never heard this story. They've never put 2 and 2 together. And so this presentation is about my 30 years of research, in a short presentation. I'm not going to go through everything, but specifically what is this presentation is about the inherent racism against African Americans and Native Americans that's in the OAHSPE Bible. And some scholars have asked African American members of this OAHSPE group, why would you want to be a member of something that denigrates you as a person and as an African American? So this is what I'm going to answer tonight, and I'm going to just let her rip. So here's my presentation.
So it's very interesting. And while you are gathering your presentation and getting it together, uh, please hit that like button. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let someone know that we're on the air. Um, Brother Woodson Payne. As always, I'm excited to see what he has to deliver on today. And these things are important because one thing we do know, and most um, psychologists and psychiatrists, psychologists, I say, who actually study these types of um, cults, tell you that they don't differ much from one to the next. So if you have a family member who's dealing in something, whatever you determine or you think may be in a cult-like atmosphere or a cult-type setting or society or group, this is something that you should be able to glean from. That'll help you start to recognize the signs. And what we're about here is looking to bring out any opportunity or any information we can that will snatch people out of these groups that usually isolate people from their families, uh, keep them secluded, and is very psychologically damaging. And so, what we want to try to do today is, hopefully give you some tools. Or Brother Wilson Payne is going to share some things to give you some tools and some information to help you and your family. And believe it or not, uh, African Americans that are joining cults is increasing. It's not decreasing. People often talk about African Americans and how they're leaving the churches, but they're not all overcoming. They're not all coming to Israelite paradigm. They're joining other spiritual cults, other spiritual hodgepodges of beliefs. Um, Voodoo is on the rise. Some will say, "Oh, well, that's actually African," but these things are cultic, right? Some of these things are just way out, right? And so this type of information is important. So the brother is sharing his screen, and and just know, as the brother's going through the presentation, um, it's geared specifically for um, for those who don't have an understanding, who may have a little bit of an understanding, um, but just to get an idea of what that would look like in your community, what that would look like in your home, right? And so I'm going to be sharing, and
There
I
we
think
go.
there we go.
So is that as big as I can make it?
I think we're fine.
All right. All right. I'll go.
Can you see
I'm
it
gonna.
well?
Yeah, I can see it well. Of course, I've been
Okay.
looking at it for 2 weeks, so
Okay.
there we go. So here's the thing: not everybody involved in OAHSPE Bible is in a cult. There's a lot of people that sit at home and read it and never, it's like Lord of the Rings or anything else. It's they take it as fiction. But there is a subgroup within this group of readers that take it for face value, like somebody that takes something right out of the Bible as face value and that it really happened or something. So within that subgroup, there's um, a couple of people that are, I guess, prominent on the internet right now. And the way I learned that there was actually some recruiting going on by this cult back in 2016. A gentleman out of Detroit, I think. See, he's Hebrew Israelite. He just put up a YouTube video about all the errors in OAHSPE and how, and he went through the Old Testament uh, chapter and verse where it's wrong. And I have his video up on my website if somebody wants to look at it later. I have a lot of information here, and I'm not going to read all of it to you. I'm going to just go through the major points, but I'll flash the page here. And if you're interested in that subject, you can come back at your own leisure and read these different subjects. But this is basically, it all in a nutshell is, okay, so what's an OAHSPE and why is it racist? So this seems to be, OAHSPE seems to be right at this moment something that African Americans can identify with as kind of like a tribal cult where they're claiming some connection to Native Americans. But what they don't understand is OAHSPE Bible is about the most anti-Native American Bible that it could ever be written. And I'll just give you a quote here. It has a creation myth, just like Noah's Ark and the story of Noah and everything. And here's just a general quotation from a OAHSPE Bible. It says, "Mingle not with the droogs, black and brown skinned people, because they are not heirs to everlasting life." Basically, they have no soul. Now, I put that in there. That's my comment. But if you've ever talked to a white Freemason, that's the first thing they'll tell you is African Americans have no soul. So here, Newborough is repeating this, the racism of his times in OAHSPE Bible, and it's peppered all throughout OAHSPE Bible. So OAHSPE Bible, the claims made by the author is that he was contacted by angels and told to buy a typewriter and get paper and sit in front of this thing. This was in 1881, he claims, and that he was just told to sit at the typewriter and they would move his fingers on the typewriter and he would channel this book, OAHSPE. So here comes, here we are 150 years later. We have a large group of, well, I wouldn't say it's a large group, but we have a new group of African Americans who have picked up the banner of OAHSPE Bible. And so here's my picture of Newborough channeling OAHSPE Bible at the typewriter. You notice the angels sitting on his shoulders that are helping him type are white angels. And I put that on there for a reason, because when African Americans find out that OAHSPE was written by a white man, then the question is, well, why would the Creator or the Most High choose a white man to channel a book for the African American community? And that's how they're selling it. They're selling it as, hey, this is the best book for the African American community. But then they find out it was written by a white dentist. It wasn't written by an African American or anybody else, but a white dentist who lived in New York City and Manhattan in 1881. So I would say some African Americans that hear this story are a little skeptical, sorry, stumbling over my words. And you get the kind of a skeptical reaction from them. And some who've been reading it for a while and then find out that that Newborough is white, then they're like, oh damn, what am I into? And it's damn, they're really starting to question. But what happens is the cult leaders reinforce this thing and try to make excuses of why the Creator or the Most High chose a white guy to be their spiritual leader. I threw this in to show you where now John Ballou Newborough was a 33rd degree Mason, and this is from the Philaxis Society website. So these are Prince Hall Masons, and this gentleman named Williams, he has a historical page on Masonry. He is a Prince Hall Mason, and they seem to be pretty upright guys. I can tell you they're not racist against black people. But here he quotes a New Jersey lodge petition to get a charter from the Grand Lodge of New Jersey to have a local chapter, Chapter 116 in East Orange, New Jersey. And so this is like 1881, right at the time that OAHSPE was being written, I believe. So the Mother Lodge, when they found out that there were 12 Negroes that were applying, they held up the charter for this lodge because of it had African Americans in it. So I'm just trying to stress to you, Newborough was a Mason. He was also not only a Blue Lodge, which is the first 3 degrees, but he was a 33rd degree, which is York, right, I guess. And so they're cream de la cream of races from my personal experience. So 41 years later, the grand, let's call him the Grand Wizard of the Mississippi Lodge says, after the charter of Alpha Lodge was restored, because they did become a chartered lodge after some wrangling, and the black candidates initiated, as Sister Lodge passed a resolution against initiating Negroes as tending to disturb the harmony of the craft and as being no benefit to them. So this complaint was eventually overturned, and this Lodge 116 went through. So 41 years later, this guy, this Grand Wizard from Mississippi, he writes this letter. Masonry never contemplated that her privileges should be extended to a race totally morally and intellectually incapacitated to discharge the obligations which they assume or have conferred upon the Masonic Lodge. It is no answer that there are exceptions to this general character of the race. We legislate for the race and not for the exceptions. We hold that affiliation with Negroes is contrary to the teachings of Masonry and is dangerous to the interests of the fraternity of free and accepted Masons. Now, this is where Newborough is coming from. This is his personal background before he wrote OAHSPE. So he's, the lodge they're dealing with is just 1 through 1st through 3rd degrees. It's just the very beginning. So Newborough was a racist, and he was appealing to the racists of his time in OAHSPE because he was going to try to recruit white people. So I put horns on the bastard.
Wow. Real quick, and you said this is before the creation of the OAHSPE Bible. He makes this.
Well, this group in East Orange, New Jersey, actually petitioned in 1871. So it's 10 years before the OAHSPE Bible was written.
Okay.
Exactly 10 years. So, but 40 years after that, this crazy clan leader, Grand Master, sorry, of New Jersey is writing a letter to all the Masons, and he's making this outrageous statement that the teachings of Masonry is dangerous to the interests of We hold that the affiliation with Negroes is contrary to the teachings of Masonry and is dangerous to the interests of the fraternity of free and accepted Masons. So that's why you have Prince Hall Masonry. This was set up kind of like Masonic apartheid. They have their own African American lodges all across the country, and most, I would say, 95, well, I can't say exactly, but when I was growing up in the South, all the Masonic, the Freemasonry lodges were all white people. There were no people of any other ethnic background except white Caucasians. So it's well known that this is a racist group. Now, Prince Hall Masons are not a racist group, as you might know some of these people in your community. They're really upright and upstanding people, but the Freemasons in the South have traditionally been very racist. So I just threw this in there to get you an idea of where philosophically Newborough's coming from before he writes this OAHSPE Bible 10 years later. And he had been a Freemason and a 33rd degree Mason 10, 15 years before writing OAHSPE. So right away, when you tell OAHSPE cult members that Newborough was a Mason, then you get into a fight. Oh, where does it say he was a Mason? Well, he's buried in a Masonic cemetery in El Paso, so I would think that's right. Pretty. Sure, yes. So anyway, so this is the total impact of these OAHSPE groups. It can have severe psychological effects on the individuals, including a dependent, subordinate identity through isolation and coercive techniques. And what happens is you read OAHSPE, then you look online, you find some of these people, they may be a benign group of people that get together and pray, like I said before in the other video, for so-and-so that's got breast cancer. Other groups are way out there, and they are recruiting heavily on the internet. And this is why I'm making this presentation, because these people remind me of the people I left, and they are exhibiting a lot of coercive techniques. They have a massive presence on YouTube and other platforms that I wasn't even aware of, but they're on a lot of platforms like BitChute. They have a community group on Facebook, which seems pretty benign, but other ones, they seem right on the edge of being a doomsday cult. So recruits are initially attracted by a promise of spiritual enlightenment or community belonging, only to find themselves subject to manipulative control that subverts their autonomy. And that's what they do. They take over your personal time. They expect you to attend, basically right now, online meetings. And they get together and they pray, but some of the fringe groups are pushing you to join, or they're trying to raise money. So this is my spin on Newborough. And I'll tell you a little secret. A lot of the old timers had dreams and visions that Newborough was in prison in the afterlife for starting a mind control cult. And this has been going around in the faithist community for 20 years that I know of, that it's been out in the public. But before that, it was known to all the old timers that this guy is in heaven, but he's in prison. So anyway, the recruitment strategies frequently exploit individuals' vulnerabilities with offering validation, a sense of purpose, leading to deep psychological entrenchment. And they're actually working you like a con man would work a mark. They're finding out what your weakness is, and they're gonna do two things at the same time. They're gonna love bomb you and tell you how great you are, and at the same time they're gonna badmouth you and tell you how you're not living up to their expectations. So you're constantly caught in this limbo of trying to please the leader of the group, and also because you're getting cold on the carpet and basically reamed out half the time, you're trying to avoid the leader. So you're just trying to lay low and survive. So it's a well-documented phenomenon in cults that we could go into at some other time. But there's a game going on. So it involves mind control. It involves manipulating members through coercive persuasion. They'll be putting pressure on you to join or to attend meetings. They use thought-stopping techniques. Usually of the really wacky cults there's usually a charismatic leadership. And sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's a group of 10 people that are very secretive, and the members of the main group don't even know what's going on and what the group is all about and who's basically at the top. Sometimes they're very secretive groups. Exploitation occurs in financial and labor forms. So the group I was in 1970, they were stealing the Social Security checks of all the elderly people, all the retired people in this group of 24 adults. So we probably had 8 or 9 retired people in this group. They were on Social Security. So the cult leader was taking their checks and then paying their rent, and then we'd all have a communal meal every day. So, but they were just, one lady I know that was involved, she was apparently wealthy, and she got her bank account cleaned out by the cult leader. They use a lot of deception in their recruiting to attract and retain members. Sometimes it can be presented as a prayer group or presented as some benign, spiritual thing, but it always ends up taking advantage of you. And I lost my present. There we go. So I brought this up with Elder Yar the other day, that the story in OAHSPE, this creation myth and story of OAHSPE, parallels Noah's Ark and Noah building a ship and leaving his family. So, I got to looking at this story, and I got to using AI, and artificial intelligence said, well, that OAHSPE story sounds like Book of Enoch, believe it or not. So Book of Enoch, refresh my memory, but I think that's an Ethiopian apocryphal book of the Bibles that didn't get really part of it didn't get part of the bulk of Jewish teachings, but it is a book of that era. I think it's Second Temple era, and it's studied by scholars all over the world, but it's not widely known outside of the community that studies Hebrew religious writings, and I'll leave it at that. But the story of Book of Enoch, to put it in a nutshell, is about Enoch is a prophet. Noah is his great-grandfather, so he's the second descendant of Noah. And apparently, before Enoch's birth, there was an incident where 200 angels, this may be why it's not a popular book, but the story goes is 200 fallen angels decided that they wanted to leave heaven and go down to earth and marry human women. They wanted to marry human women and cohabitate with human women for obvious reasons. And so they were called the Watchers by Enoch in the book of Enoch. And so this is just an ancient text. It's an ancient biblical story that elaborates on the story of Noah and how it gives a detailed account of the fall of the Watchers, a group of 200 fallen angels who descended to earth, ultimately leading to chaos and destruction. And when they do this, God puts a curse on them. And he says, all you people are going to die a horrible death, and all your offspring are going to die a horrible death. And at the end, we're going to throw you in a hole in the desert, basically. I'm putting it in a nutshell, but correct me if I'm wrong. So Enoch details the consequences. He calls these fallen angels the Watchers. And so the Watchers descend from heaven. I don't know how the book of Enoch puts it into action, but basically, I guess they take on physical form in some shape or form. I'm not sure. But anyway, these 200 fallen angels marry human daughters of actually Cain. So the offspring of Cain. He has some beautiful daughters, so they're hot to trot for these. So these women give birth to the Nephilim, and this is something you'll see all over the internet, and people have no idea what they're talking about. They've got no clue. They think they're UFO beings. Anyway, it's very bizarre what you see on YouTube. But anyway, these were giant beings who brought war and suffering to humanity. They're called the Nephilim. They were giants. And Enoch tries to intercede on their behalf, praying for forgiveness all through his pleas, but his pleas to God are unsuccessful. So this is almost like the story found in OAHSPE. And OAHSPE, well, let me go a little bit further. But in the book of Enoch, 200 angels known as the Watchers descend to earth with the intention of marrying human women. These angels are depicted as rebellious beings who forsake their heavenly duties, leading to their fall from grace. So the angels' union with human women results in the birth of the Nephilim, a race of giants. This act of intermingling is significant as it marks a direct interference with the divine, with the mortal world. So the Nephilim are described as powerful and destructive giants. So in a second now, you're going to see how Nuberos took this story, flipped the script, and there's the same characters are there. He just changed the names. The Nephilim in Book of Enoch are portrayed as being reckless and causing chaos upon the earth due to their immense strength and size. So these are big, powerful giants. So they're associated with an increase in sin and corruption, eventually contributing to the divine decision to cleanse the world through the Genesis flood. This is the same story in OAHSPE. It's just a little bit different. This narrative from the book of Enoch provides additional context to the brief mention of the Nephilim in the book of Genesis, expanding upon the nature of this impact of these beings. So in Genesis, it mentions these people, but it doesn't go into detail like book of Enoch, but it does mention this account. So I just give the references from those previous quotes. If somebody wants to take the time and look them up on the internet, it goes into great detail about in documentation of what I just said. So OAHSPE's creation myth, now it echoes Book of Enoch, but it's got a white colonial racist twist to it. And I'll show you how that works. So OAHSPE's creation myth echoes the theme of Book of Enoch, except it's totally racist. So it's reflecting the racist attitude of mainly colonial whites and Europeans during the 19th century. And but to give OAHSPE some type of gravitas, he's taken this story of Book of Enoch and he's flipped the script. So OAHSPE's creation myth, this is how he flipped the story, where Book of Enoch has 2,000 fallen angels take on human form to mate with the daughters of men. OAHSPE claims that angels, these ugly looking guys, and apparently they're white angels from what I gather, they married with the local indigenous people at that time with having black and brown skin. And this picture is a recreation of a modern Homo sapien woman whose remains were found, and they recreated her face through using forensics. And this is a modern human, 24,000 years ago. So OAHSPE paints these people as animals with black and brown skin. And this whole story of the flood in OAHSPE is supposed to have taken place 24,000 years ago. So this is how OAHSPE depicts Homo sapiens as having black and brown skin, short legs, very long arms, who live in the mud. Well, before Homo sapiens, there was Australopithecus, and they did have long arms, but that doesn't mean they lived in the mud. But this is actually a female. This is something Newborough drew to trying to represent these ancient peoples. And right away, you're starting to, when he says black and brown skinned people, well, right away, you know, the story's going south, and he's starting to incorporate this racist narrative inside of OAHSPE. So according to Newborough, these indigenous people from the time of the flood who mated with these angels, and I'm saying they're white angels because here's the kicker. They came to Earth, took on human form, and mated with these Aboriginal women. It does say Cain, so it calls them Asu or Adam. Adamite was a term that Joseph Smith of the Mormon Church used to describe these people. Newborough says Asu, A-S-U, just means first in some language. Anyway, they mate and they have offspring that are white and yellow skin with long straight hair that is either blonde or white, and they have beards. And so right away, he's put a spin on the Cain and Abel and story of Adam and Eve. So now he's saying, oh, well, when the first offspring of this unholy union of Aboriginal people and these angels that took on human form were basically white people, white and yellow people, so that could include Asian people. So what is the Book of Enoch said, the Nephilim are described as the offspring of the Watchers, a group of angels who descended to earth, led by a high-ranking angel named Shimjaza, that's a Hebrew name, and took human wives. These humans produced the Nephilim, who are depicted as giants, significantly large and in stature, purportedly as much as 300 cubits. I don't know what a cubit is. What's that, a yard? Equivalent to 450 feet, according to certain interpretive traditions. So here's a OAHSPE story, and here's Book of Enoch. Now, what happened is Newborough just put in an interceding white group of people before the Nephilim, so he could put white people at the pinnacle of human existence. That was his whole goal, was to portray people with blonde, yellow hair and white hair with long, straight hair as at the pinnacle of human creation. And this was a 19th century belief that was popular amongst the colonialists and European intellectual circles. There was all kinds of theories of where man came from, but if you asked a European colonialist living in the United States, they would say, well, the first people were white, but Enoch says they're black. So Newborough just flipped the script. He wanted lighter skinned people to be the most spiritual, and then everybody downstream from there to be less spiritual. And the way he describes them is denigrating to people of color. So in Book of Enoch, the first generation is the Nephilim. In Newborough's version, he's got these white people first. They're the top of the pyramid on the human chain of evolution. Well, it's exactly backwards. It actually started with people millions of years ago that migrated out of Africa. They were not white people. I'm sorry, Newborough. You've got the whole human race upside down. So if I blow my temper doing this presentation, I'm sorry, but I've been looking at this for 30 years, and it's so insulting to people of color that they don't realize that OAHSPE is denigrating them. And so that's what I'm trying to clear up, is that Newborough is talking to you as a white racist, and he was appealing to white racists to join his cult. And that's why he set up these things. So the Nephilim are giant beings who lead to the increase of sin and violence among humans. Their actions were marked by chaos and destruction. So John Ballew's Newborough's version is, well, after this, oh, come on, don't do that. After this mythical white race, then comes the Nephilim. He just moves the Nephilim one step down on the totem pole. And OAHSPE, Newborough's OAHSPE reflects similar colonial era justifications for slavery through its portrayal of the Droogs, a narrative running parallel to the depiction of Africans during the pre-Civil War era. In OAHSPE, Droogs are characterized as being devoid of spiritual enlightenment and led by lower desires, reinforcing stereotypes of innate violence and moral deficiency that had been historically ascribed to Africans. I'm talking about African slaves at this point, to rationalize slavery. So that here the narrative in this country was all types of false narratives about African slaves that justified their the continued practice of slavery. So this is a narrative that white European colonizers sold to each other as justification. This narrative serves to reinforce existing racial stereotypes used against African slaves and their descendants, echoing unjustifications utilized during the colonial era. Newborough's spiritualist perspective may have inadvertently perpetuated these harmful ideologies by presenting them as part of a design or natural order. So he's given you this pyramid where Newborough is, where lighter skinned people are at the top of human existence, and the drooks, who are these white and yellow people, marry with the indigenous people and create a race called drooks. So these are black and brown people. So what he's doing is he's weaving a story that is appealing to white people of his time, 1881, that he was hoping to recruit. And it's not that he made these things up, these racist narratives against slaves. He just incorporated them. He put them in, he canonized them. So in the 18th and 19th century, there was a common myth amongst white colonialists that you see mounds, mound builder. There's a huge mound builder civilization in North America. There's some in Central America too, but those are mainly pyramids for religious purposes. But in North America, we have pyramids all over, and we had 3 great Native American civilizations, but the colonialists couldn't accept that Native Americans had built all of these, this mound builder civilization. So American writers of the early 1800s were putting out books saying, well, the people that built these mounds, they were Vikings, they were from Syria, they were from Egypt, they were from Norway, they were anywhere and anybody but Native Americans. They could not conceive that Native Americans could build such a giant civilization. And even children's boys' adventure books had these fictitious stories about Viking mound builders. So here I've got these cartoon mound builders with white and yellow hair. They're kind of midgets as portrayed in OAHSPE. So I'm just making fun of OAHSPE. It's ridiculous. So there's thousands of mounds all over Ohio Valley, Mississippi Valley, down in Louisiana. There's mounds all over creation. There's Cahokia in Illinois. It's called Serpent Mound or Monk's Mound. It's absolutely massive structure that Native Americans built. So Newborough in OAHSPE hijacked this story, and he claimed that these little white dwarfs that came from the time of Noah came to America and built these mounds. So he kind of hijacked Native American culture and put his little magic white people in its place. So he's completely well, this thing doesn't work very well. But
very interesting, man. I wanted to ask you, before you continue, I wanted to ask you in regards to the mounds. Now, you're saying that the Native Americans, these mounds that they build, and have heard the stories that I agree with you are very fallacious in regards to the Vikings or some other persons or people group came into so-called the Americas, or Turtle Island as it used to be called,
right.
and sort of created these mounds. But we clearly know that's not the case. That
Correct.
the indigenous people of the land, or what we would call, Native Americans today, definitely built these structures. I was just reading a few days ago. They're talking about that. I forgot where it is, but I believe it's somewhere in South America. They found the largest pyramid structure, even larger than that of ancient Kemet in ancient Egypt. They're saying they were talking about how many of the pyramids of Egypt you can actually fit inside this particular pyramid.
Well, this Monk's Mound is the same thing. It's bigger. The base is bigger than the pyramid in Egypt. It's not as tall, but it's a massive thing. You can see it. You're 5 miles away and you can see this thing. It's so tall when you're over in Illinois driving towards the Mississippi River. And it's not only this structure, but there's mounds all over the place in this district that I imagine this was some ceremonial mound where the big cheese lived, perhaps, but there are smaller mounds all over the place in Illinois, Ohio River Valley. And these programs you see on like History Channel, this is a continuation of these 19th century false narratives about Native Americans. So they're just continuing these old, worn out themes that the mound builder culture was built by Vikings or Syrians or Egyptians, and it's been well debunked by Smithsonian Institute and recently by DNA evidence of some of these mounds are also burial mounds. Very important people were buried in all of these mounds, probably chiefs and their family. And smaller mounds had probably family groups. But DNA evidence has proved that there's nobody from Europe in any of these groups anywhere in America. They all came from northeastern Siberia or parts of Asia. And the people that built the mound, the American Indian that we have today, are the direct descendants from those people that built the mounds across the United States, verified through DNA evidence. So it's not my opinion, but when you see a story on the History Channel of these ancient Viking settlements, yeah, there may be a Viking settlement in Nova Scotia, but they're trying to say that all of these mounds were built by whoever, anybody with white skin, basically, is what they're saying. So what Newborough and OAHSPE did, he just hijacked this entire mound builder civilization, and he's just repeating the pseudoscience that was going around in archaeological books starting in the late 1700s, went all the way through till 1900, that people were writing about this crap. And Smithsonian Institute came out in about 1890 and debunked the whole thing, said it was hogwash. But Newborough hijacked this story, and these mythical people with white and yellow hair, these little dwarf people, he just hijacked the entire mound builder civilization and said that they were white dwarfs from the time of Noah who came here in ships after a great flood. And so it's just cultural appropriation. So when you see these stories on History Channel, they're repeating almost verbatim these early stories written by Josiah. I can't remember their names right now. It escapes me. But there was a bunch of authors that were writing pseudoscience during the beginning around 1833 that were spreading these stories. But actually, this story had been out amongst ordinary people for hundreds of years in America. This was a common thing. This is how they viewed Native Americans. And as for slavery, this is how they denigrated African Americans to justify slavery. So going back to Newborough's story, he's repeating the flood of Noah and the ark, but Newborough claims, well, these Ihans he claims that there was a lost continent in the Pacific Ocean. And there were already stories of Lemuria and Mu that were lost continents. Atlantis, they all sank. And the people that lived on them were these religious monks, and they went all over the world. Well, Newborough, that's a story from Plato. So Newborough took that story, flipped the script, and said, oh, there wasn't just one ship with Noah at the helm. There was 138 ships. And UFOs came, and they sank this continent, and this 138 ships went all over the world. And so 2 of them came to North America, and these white people, well, they just founded this entire mound builder civilization 24,000 years ago. This is when Newborough said that this cock and bull story happened. So the common story was, well, they were Vikings. Well, Newborough said, oh, they were from the continent of Pan. But in any case, no matter which version you listen to, they always had white skin, blonde hair, or white hair. So I'm assuming they had blue eyes too. But that just shows you how racist Newborough was, and it shows you how racist European colonialists were in this time. And, they started writing these false narratives, 1833, but these had been folk tales in this country for hundreds of years. So somebody just finally, they started excavating these mounds in the early 19th century. So when they started digging into them and finding relics and whatever, then people started writing pseudoscience about and speculating about who these people were. And so the theory is called the lost white tribe theory. And you can look this up. There's many books on the mound builder myth. It's a formal study in pseudoscience among real scientists. And so Andrew, I did finish spelling his name, but in 1828, gold was discovered in Cherokee Indian territory in southern Georgia in 1828. So by 1830, as soon as gold was found, Andrew Jackson, President Jackson, signed the Indian Removal Act of 1830. That's what the act is called, the Removal Act of 1830. and he signed into law. He said all Native Americans east of the Mississippi are going to be removed to Oklahoma Indian Territory. So this led to the Trail of Tears. A lot of people have heard about the Trail of Tears, but they don't know why it occurred. I personally, I was kind of sketchy on it myself, and so I started researching it. But from 1832 to 1872, all tribes were removed to Oklahoma Indian Territory, and some 10,000 Native Americans perished along the way during the Trail of Tears. And just the Cherokee alone, who's from Georgia and southern South Carolina, they had 3,000 to 6,000 African American slaves. And I may be wrong in this statement at the last, but a percentage of those people also perished in the Trail of Tears. Because the Cherokee owned slaves, they owned a lot of slaves. So they were kicked off the land too, along with Native Americans. Even though they were slaves, they still had no rights. They all went to Oklahoma Indian Territory. So OAHSPE and Newborough are spinning this story that these white people came to America and built this civilization, except this story, according to OAHSPE, takes place 24,000 years ago. This is when the OAHSPE's flood or deluge story takes place. There's only one fly in the ointment here. 24,000 years ago, we were in an ice age in North America, and there was an ice sheet across the northern part of North America that was 9,000 feet thick. So you can imagine the story is just absolute BS. There's no way people could migrate from anywhere 24,000 years ago. So Newborough, being a dumbass, pardon my French, he had no idea that it was you put it a little bit better, Elder Yar. You say, oh, he's slow. Well, Newborough was a little slow. He didn't know about the Ice Age. So that just blows his whole cock and bull story out of the water completely. There's no way these people could have migrated here 24,000 years ago, because there was a 9,000 foot, that's a mile and a half, almost 2 mile thick sheet of ice on the northern part of United States. Texas was south of this ice sheet, but it was -4 degrees in the winter. That's Arctic temperature, So the whole story is just a cock and bull story. So here's my depiction of these blonde dwarves with white and yellow hair. They get to North America and they say, "Oh, darn! There's an ice age here. We shouldn't be here." So, according to Newborough, there was 138 ships that went all around the world. Okay. 2 ships went to North America, built the whole mound builder civilization with these little white dwarfs with blonde and yellow hair. So this is all generated by AI, by the way. So you have this family tree that Newborough created, and it's a pyramid. He's got white people at the top, and he's got darker skinned people as you go down the line. And so the second generation after the Ihans, these little white people, were Ihuans. So they were people that these Ihans supposedly married the Aboriginal people, the race of Adam, to create Indians. So this was a common racist theme in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century, that Africans were the result of interbreeding between whites and Indians. And then the other story was Native Americans were the result of the crossbreeding of whites and Africans. So just pick your racist story. They've got one for you. And I'm sure there was other variations on the theme. But what Newborough was doing with this whole cock and bull story was he was placing lighter skinned people at the top of the pyramid of human evolution and claiming that these were highly spiritual and religious people who talked to angels and all this crap. And as the first generation away, they're copper colored race, and then comes black and brown people who are droops. So this story is very derogatory towards Native Americans and African Americans. The story you find in OAHSPE is absolutely racist. And like I said before, Yara, it doesn't get any more racist than that. You know,
yeah, clearly.
It does not get any more racist than that. So here's the real story, you know, and OAHSPE is saying, well, this happened 24,000 years ago. Well, there was an ice age then. So the actual story is humans didn't arrive. They arrived from Asia on a land bridge that was Beringia, which was a little strip of land between Russia and Alaska that was above water during the Ice Age. The first known human evidence of human existence in North America is 18,000 years ago. They never found any remains. They found tools that these people had used to skin mastodons and, you know, carve wood and whatever. They found tools, but they didn't find them. The first DNA evidence that they found is like 14,000 years ago. So these people who became the Native Americans migrated from Asia. And there's a chain of DNA evidence all the way to the tip of South America, documenting this, and it's all in chronological order. As they move south, the DNA evidence and the carbon dating gets younger and younger, or newer and newer. And the people that populated South America, they also went north off the tip of South America and by canoes or whatever populated the Caribbean islands. That's one direction they came from. So this is all backed up by science. This is not me talking, but you can see that over on this pyramid over here, that there's a definite racial bias that Newborough was presenting in OAHSPE. And he was just merely reflecting the racism of his time. And he was probably most likely, if he was a Mason, he was definitely a very racist person. But he was trying to recruit white people. And that's why this story is found in OAHSPE. So this is a modern Homo sapien woman from 24,000 years ago. This is what a modern human looked like in this time period when Newborough claims these people came here by ships. So he's trying to portray them, native peoples, as dark and black skin living in the mud. And he's deliberately repeating these racist stories about the character of African slaves and Native Americans all thrown in together. He's just denigrating anybody that's not white or Caucasian. And Caucasian is actually a recent word. This has not been around. But so to continue on with this Newborough story, these Aboriginal women, or the women of the time of Adam and Eve, mated with these angels that took on human form, and they created these white and yellow people. Yeah, okay, whatever. But this is a spin-off on the Book of Enoch. And I don't really think Newborough wrote this book because there's too much research that would have had to been done. I think it's a cast of characters that wrote this book, and Newborough just happened to get a manuscript, and he edited out what he didn't want, and he created OAHSPE. But it's definitely a spin-off, in my opinion, a spin-off on the Book of Enoch. And so this is actually an English translation from Book of Enoch from, I think, 1833 by H.R. Charles. So this is a translation from the original. You can read it later. You can come back to this video and read it later, but it's just confirming that I don't expect you to know the OAHSPE story, but you can read about the Book of Enoch on your own leisure, and it's a very interesting story. It's a very religious story, but all throughout OAHSPE, in the first couple of books that's talking about the creation of man, he's constantly denigrating subliminally Native Americans and African slaves. And this was the whole point of this creation myth, was he was just repeating the racism of his time, plus he was a racist. So when you come back later and you go through these things, if it's in yellow, it jives with Book of Enoch. If it's in red, it's something that it relates to Newborough's creation myth. If it's in green, it's just stupid. I'm sorry. It's just the stupidest thing you've ever read. So I put in quotations from OAHSPE that shows all of these races, false narratives about Native Americans and African slaves, because this was just, it was written in 1881. So slavery ended after the Civil War, or during the Civil War, actually. So I've just gone through and taken out the quotes from OAHSPE that reinforce this racist narrative. I'll let you read them on your own. I'm not going to bore you with them, but I am just flashing them here. So if you come back to this video, you can read them at your leisure. But it just reinforces how racist Newborough is. And here's one of these white Vikings that built the mounds. So that's what OAHSPE is based on, and the African Americans don't realize the implications of OAHSPE and how it denigrates African Americans, and how it denigrates Native Americans by claiming white people built the mounds. They're new to OAHSPE. I've been looking at the thing for 30 years as trying to disprove it. So it's, I only put 2 and 2 together like 8 years ago, but it's taking me this long to research it and tell this story. This is the first time this story has ever been told anywhere. Nobody in these OAHSPE groups has ever put this together. So this is something they've not figured out yet, but they don't realize how racist OAHSPE is and how it's denigrating them. So here's when the Drooks marry back with when they get to North America, the Drooks, not the Drooks, the Ihans, the Indians, are the second generation off of these white people. The white people, little dwarves, marry the Aborigines, and they create Drooks, or Ihans, which are the Indians, according to Newborough. And then when the Indians crossbreed again with the Aboriginal people or the race of Adam, they create yaks. And this is my interpretation of a yak. They're just a clawed animal. Well, this is clearly a derogatory statement against all mankind, not just African Americans. This is some really dark racist shit going on here. Pardon my French, but I get upset. So the whole fly in the ointment is, I'll go back to this picture. Bear with me 1 second. So, okay, so the little white people get to North America and they become the mound builder race. And according to Newborough, these white and yellow haired people with white skin or yellow skin married with the race of Adam. But Newborough by this time forgot that he had said the original race of Adam died off after 8 years. So many years later, they left 24,000 years ago and arrived in America. So they claimed that the Ihans, these little people, interbred with the Aboriginal people. Well, there were no Aboriginal people here. There were no race of Adam in North America or anywhere else 24,000 years ago. There was nobody here. There was nobody here 18,000 years ago. Well, maybe 18,000 years ago. But there was an ice age going on. So Newborough's whole story falls apart because he forgot that he said early on in OAHSPE that the race of Adam died off after 8,000 years. So years and years later, they flee this sinking continent, this mythical sinking continent, and come to America 24,000 years ago, which happens to be in the throes of an ice age. But Newborough forgot that he killed off all these people in his story. So when they get here, he says, oh, well, these Ihans, these little people, these little Viking dwarfs, married with Aboriginal people. There's nobody here except Native Americans. So this is just a total sham story. Newborough forgot that he killed off all these other races of people during the flood, and these Ihans are the only one left. So they come to North America, and Newborough claims they started another civilization here. And from these Ihans, they interbreed with the local Aboriginal people, these black and brown people, and create Native Americans. Well, that was a common racist narrative in colonial America, that Africans were the offspring of whites and Native Americans. And Europeans would say, well, whites and Africans, the offspring were Native Americans. So there was a couple of different stories. But anyway, in Newborough's story, they get over here and there's nobody here in reality to make this civilization. They supposedly, well, I'm not going to go into that story, but it's all a fairy tale made up of the existing racism that was in North America at the time. So he blew his whole cover when he brought these little white people here, and there's no Aboriginal people here. The only people here that were ever here originally was Native Americans. I think the slave trade started from Africa in 1612. They landed in Virginia. So I'm sure there were some African people on this continent at some point, but the people that built the mounds for the most part were Native Americans. There's a lot of stories floating around that are also, I wouldn't say they're false narratives, but there's a lot of people that are recruiting people into groups that are using a spin-off on this story, either making them African Americans or making them Vikings. You'll see on History Channel right now these Caucasian grown-ups telling this story of all these Viking ruins they're finding in North America, and they'll show you tablet after tablet. Well, as soon as they started opening up these Indian Native American mounds, people started fabricating tablets with Hebrew writing on it, with Norse and Germanic runes on them. Everybody's got a tablet to sell that they've made. And if you look up the Michigan tablets, some industrious farmer made thousands and thousands of tablets to try to bolster the Book of Mormon. So these things are at a university in Michigan now, but they're all just fabrications. They're made out. They're clay tablets. They were never fired. So if you take one of these clay tablets and put it in water, it just dissolves. So it's not an ancient artifact. It's just somebody patted out a clay tablet and scratched on some bunch of weird symbols, or they may have put something in Hebrew, or they may have put something in Norse runes, something out of some ancient book. They put it on there and they tried to pass it off. They tried to sell this stuff. It was a money-making scam back in the 1800s. So there's a lot of counterfeits. So when you tune into History Channel and they say ancient aliens, turn it off because that's what they're selling. They're selling all of these artifacts that were fabricated by people that were running a scam. So I've just gone through. And what I'll do, I'll publish this PDF and I'll drop a link to it in the comments in a couple of days. And you can read this whole PDF. But this whole presentation was, I fed ChatGPT this research information that I gathered over 30 years, and it went and researched those claims and verified where they came from, and verified that these were racist narratives that were going around in the 17, 18, and 1900s. So this, just to give credit where credit's due, I had these assumptions that I made after this research, and I fed it to ChatGPT, and it went and verified it, went and found websites that documented all this stuff. So I have a mass of links that I'll put on the end of this PDF. We've gone too long already, and this PDF gives a basic description of how cults operate. Mm-hmm. So you can educate yourself and educate your family of all the different tricks and trades that they use to recruit you into cults. There's a set science of studying how people get recruited into this thing and what techniques they use. So I'm just going to attach that. It's already on this video presentation, but in the next day or two, I'll drop a link to a PDF, and people can, if they want to, study further. I don't want to read through it now. It's just psychological analysis. But this is the cult that Newbro started outside of Las Cruces, New Mexico. And he went out and just out in the wilderness in 1884, bought it. I think it was originally 400 or 600 acres. They bought more land later. But he had a rich benefactor in Boston named Andrew Howland that was financing this whole operation. And Newborough was advertising this basically cult out in the desert as being communally owned. And I stated this before in the other presentation I made. 1885, these people rebelled. There was about 41 people here. They rebelled and tried to vote Newborough out of office because he was a tyrant, and that they had sold, and he had sold them this bill of good that this was communally owned. And one of the doctors, there was a lot of educated people in this colony. Like in the 1800s, it's called a small town that was just beginning. They called it a colony, so that's why they call it the Shalem colony. But it was a colony of OAHSPE fanatics. But anyway, they rebelled and tried to get rid of him, and it's a long story that's pretty well documented. They got, like, half of them got thrown off the property with not a penny in their pocket. So that's kind of the wrap up. And this is just more information on the right side of how cult leaders operate. So I'll drop this PDF into this chat for this video in 3 days, and I'll attach all the references.
Awesome. Great. Hey, listen, Brother Woodson Payne, that's a great presentation, man. Filled with a lot of information. You gave us some things to look at, some things we can use to help attack and come against these types of cults as we see them, to be able to recognize the cultic practices and the ways, and even some of the aspects you didn't get a chance to really go into, but really speaking a lot about the psychological effects of cults. That's important as well. But just keeping in mind that even with the OAHSPE, and I want to make that caveat as well, because Brother Payne, you really made that clear earlier, that every person that's involved with the faith, this movement, does not operate in these some of these cultic type ways.
No.
And so that's important. That I think that's important to stress and to make clear, and just to be, and just that shows the integrity of the information that's being put forth. You're not trying to throw everyone in the same basket that has something to do with the faithless movement, or even may even study or read the OAHSPE. But it's important. It's important to understand the culture, the cultic practices that we see, especially during the time of Newborough, that is still burgeoning today, and online.
Right.
And these online versions seems to be the unhealthier versions of what we see.
Yeah, it's, they real cultic groups pretty much prey on people and coerce them into these situations, and they shut down. Like I said before, that there's no questions allowed, and if you're in one of these radical OAHSPE groups, you can't ask a question. You can't challenge the leader. You can't ask them to explain something that's out of line that you find in OAHSPE. It's just not allowed, and they'll shut you down. They have ways of manipulating you, and you're right. Not all of them are cults. A lot of them are just benign groups that somebody finds OAHSPE and they read it. They may go on. I've been online with a group of faithists here recently, and talked to them. We've known each other for 30 years, I guess. And they're pretty normal people. They're business people or professors, or we knew one guy that was a physician. It's just your everyday walk of life. It's just there are some people with borderline personalities that pick up OAHSPE, and all of a sudden they want to be the next Newborough. They want to be God's prophet and channel today's message. And I'll tell you, here's the thing with these OAHSPE groups. Some of them are just plain ordinary groups, get together for coffee. But some of them are OAHSPE plus something else. And right now it looks to be they're drawing from either the Old Testament or they're drawing quotations from OAHSPE out of context to try and justify or verify OAHSPE's credibility. So this is something that I'm seeing now coming out of the West Coast and the East Coast, these groups. And it's they don't allow any questions. They get extremely upset when you ask a question, or if you were lucky. The one time you went on and you asked that guy a question, turned out he was a former Hebrew Israelite, and you said and I don't know which group he was in. I wasn't really paying attention, but you kind of indicated that he was a little slow, and that's why he was in the OAHSPE group, because he had dropped out of another group. Well, a lot of these people have been in the Hebrew Israelite group. A lot of people coming from New York area. So, but people come from all different backgrounds. It's a very small group nationwide, so I can't condemn all of them. A lot of them are really nice people, but and in fact, this researcher that I've been working with in Japan, he's a retired English professor. He's got a PhD in linguistics. He's a million miles ahead of me as far as research and what he's accumulated and realized. And I'd like to invite him on some Friday.
Sure.
He's in Japan. It's 9 o'clock in the morning there. But he would be somebody else that could give you so much more information than I could about, especially about Newborough, because he knows all the bad things that Newborough was doing, much more than I do. I can barely scratch the surface on Newborough. And tonight's presentation was just to try to give you an inkling of why it's racist. And you know, if you're African American or a person of color, why are you involved in this? This doesn't make sense. It's denigrating you.
Absolutely.
And it's putting down your heritage. And what's going on? Why don't you get it? Why don't you get the story? And why are you willing to accept the pinnacle of human existence is white dwarfs with blonde and yellow hair? What is wrong with you? So,
and so I agree wholeheartedly. And again, truth is truth. No matter where it comes from, no matter who serves it, truth is truth. And so again, Brother Payne, I appreciate you wanting to share on our platform again. As always, it is open to you as well. I appreciate the research and recognize the research as it is important. I don't know many people at all who are taking the helms in doing the research in this particular topic, and it's important that we are aware, right? This Bible tells us we should watch as well as pray. We should watch as well as pray. So again, if indeed, if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out in regards to the show tonight, I'm going to put up, let me see if I can do it on here across the screen. There it is. You can email us at newtoramove@gmail.com. If you have questions for our good brother Payne, you can email him at newtoramove and I'll filter them to him. And if he decides to respond or not. But I think he's given enough information on this particular topic and subject for you to go back and do your own research and study this particular segment information that he brought out. I'm looking forward to other presentations, and again, as well as to the book that I know he's working on as well. And so I think this is, it's been enlightening for me in regards to how to clearly identify, cultic practices and how to properly assess those who are being challenged with this OAHSPE Bible, and how to effectively minister to them to help bring them out of a place if they are in that place and dealing with psychological, psychotic issues or issues of loneliness and abandonment, whatever you may be. You can email us at newtoramove if you have any prayer requests. And shout out to our good brother Patrick. I didn't see him in here, but still praying for you and your family, as well as your acquaintance, your friend, Brother Patrick. I just wanted to make that known. Always praying for New Tour Movement family. And again, the last word is on you, Brother Payne. You take it, man. Close us out.
Well, I have a favor. Could you close us out with a prayer? Just to close this thing out, and we'll say good night.
Yeah, absolutely. Dear Father, Abba Father, we come to you right now, humbled in your presence. We give you all the glory and the praise. We set our petition before you, our supplication we submit to you as well, that those under the sound of my voice who are dealing with family members or themselves are dealing or been experienced the demonic and the satanic influences that we find in the OAHSPE Bible, anything that comes against your knowledge of your scripture, that comes against your law, statutes, and commandments, to take away from the message or the good news, the gospel message of Yeshua, that teaches us how to worship you in spirit and in truth, how to honor you and you alone. And what we would like to do is that we would like to offer our prayer. We would like to offer our request to you, Father, that those who are suffering, those who are having mental issues and mental challenges, that the bonds and the chains be broken off of their minds, that they be set free in their spirits, that they be returned to their families, that they allow themselves to be healed by you. All of the years, all of the times that they felt loneliness and despair, and that they found themselves in situations that they know that are against your will and your way. Open their eyes, allow them to see, unstop their ears so that they may hear what thus saith Yah. And we thank you right now for the information that is going forth on this channel, and those who are dealing with any type of oppression. We come against that, whether it's demonic oppression, whether it's coming from men, whether it's coming from themselves, those who suffer from any type of mental illness and mental challenges. We ask you that you enlighten them, that you let your word permeate their hearts, that they find a way to hear this prayer and to hear this message so that they know that they are not alone, that you are with them. And for that, we give you all the glory and the honor and the praise. Hallelujah. All right. So again, brother, hey, listen, there's nothing else that I can say but great, great presentation, powerful. I look forward to your next presentation. I know you have much, much more. I know there's so much more you weren't able to get into. But again, we already have the blueprint. You already know, hey, Elder Yara, this is what's next. Let's get a date, let's get it going, and we will we'll avail ourselves, and because I do think that it is much needed. It is much needed. And all those who are in the WASP congregation, thank you for that, Sister uh, Linda. She says, shout out with much love to the WASP congregation and continually keep them in our prayers. Thank you. Absolutely. Listen, we are not your enemies. I'm glad she said that. We are not your enemies. This is not what this is about. And I think, brother, Brother Woodson agrees with that. We're not your enemies. So this is not what this is about. But this is about having and showing love one to another. And in that, and in showing love, there comes correction, there comes rebuke, there comes reproof, and there also comes help, there comes assistance for anyone that needs it, for anyone that's calling out. I know Brother Payne has helped some who find themselves in these particular types of situations and giving them a leg up and a fresh start. This is how the Most High how it works. And so, listen, it's not up to us to argue whom He chooses to use to bless others. That's not our job. But I will say this: whatever the Most High has placed on your heart to do, you would be best to find yourself doing it and carrying it out. It may not look like what anybody else is doing, and that's okay. It's not supposed to. It's not supposed to. And so I'm glad, Brother Woodson, uh, Payne has found his calling. He's found his calling. He's found his purpose, and it is an admirable one. And so for that, he always is. Again, he's always welcome here to share. And so again, peace and blessings, family. I think it's been a great show. I know it's been a great show, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So tomorrow, 12 noon, we're going to be doing the Shabbat class. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be something you have not heard before. We're going to be talking about the consuming of the swine and how and the understanding of that in the Torah and throughout the scriptures, right? It's not going to be what you think it is. So if you miss it, you're going to just have to run it back and catch it on a replay. But you're not going to want to miss it. If you can't make it, listen, hit your notifications. Make sure you come back and you listen to it. But this is going to be something you haven't heard before in dealing with the consumption of swine and the dietary laws in the Bible. You may say, Elder Yara, what can you tell us about the dietary laws? The Bible says don't eat it. Well, we're going to talk about that. And let this be known, I'm not advocating for the eating of swine or the eating of pork. I'm not advocating for that. But what I am saying is that there's always something deeper to be understood in the scriptures. So anytime there's a law given or command or a statute given by the Most High, there's always something deeper given or something meaningful for us to understand. And so we're going to talk about that tomorrow afternoon. Look for the notification if you haven't already. Please like, share, and subscribe. But Sister Cassandra, it's okay. It's okay. It'll be a minute. We should be on for a while. But peace and blessings to everyone. And with that being said, we're gonna close this thing out. Shalom.
Mind codes. No sweat. Yeah. Whew. Yeah. I just be talking that good. Still they gon' say that I'm bad. Yeah.